Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video I have the latest from the live radar. Run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we are going to see a bit of a split over the course of this week depending on where you are across the country. Northern and western areas are likely to be cooler with more unsettled conditions, potentially some more thunderstorms, maybe even some longer spells of rain. Further southwards and eastwards, we just about hold on to the summery conditions with still lots of dry conditions, some showers at times, and of course temperatures being much higher. Not quite as high as it's been the last few days, unlikely to get back towards the 30s, but 27 or 28 degrees is definitely possible when we see these slight bursts of warmth from the south. So sort of a west to southwesterly flow is going to dominate this week, and it is going to cause that split. So it is going to be very regional over the course of this working week. As we progress into the longer term, that pattern looks like it's going to continue for much of the next couple of weeks. It does, again, allow the possibility of hotter bursts from the south. All you need is that high to build in slightly more, and we do pull up a full-blown southerly wind, and with hot air not too far away, then very quickly things could escalate. But at the moment, we are looking warm, drier in the south, more unsettled further northwards. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, do like and subscribe. If we start on the live radar, you can see the westerly winds overnight have returned with a bit of a vengeance, especially in the north and west. And you can already see this split appearing, and it's going to be pretty much like this for much of the week. In the south and the east, so much of England and Wales here, it's dry, a few showers, but plenty of sunshine, and temperatures are still pretty warm. Not quite as hot as they were yesterday or of course across Thursday or Friday, but still in around the mid-20s and still fairly pleasant. Further northwards though, lots more in the way of showers, some pretty heavy thundery showers appearing here, and yeah, looks pretty miserable if we're being completely honest. And it's all because we've got low pressure out to our northwest, high pressure out to our southeast. And you can see that from dry conditions across France, unsettled conditions heading out towards the North Atlantic. And we are right in the space between those two big systems. Now do look at the temperatures. It's also got a southeast northwest split, western Scotland, Northern Ireland, some blues mixing in, mid to low teens in places, and then across southern and eastern areas still just about hanging on to the warmth across the East Anglia, maybe high 20s this afternoon, 26, 27 degrees. And you see where the rest of the heat still is across Europe. Most of it is getting swept away inevitably with a bit of a westerly tilt, but still very hot across much of northern and western Europe. Now, of course, in yesterday's video, we were looking at the severe thunderstorms, and we did see those occurring overnight. They did occur a little bit later than I anticipated, but they really did strike with a vengeance across northern England up towards the Scottish border, slightly further northwards than we anticipated. So much of the southern edge of the warning zone didn't see severe storms. You still see some darker greens and just general greens here indicating there was rain, there was some heavy rain, but the really severe storms, you can see where they pass through up towards the Lake District and then across through parts of the Scottish borders, Carlisle here, all the way up right and towards the coast. And again, some oranges and yellows here indicating a few inches of rain. And again, I did have a look at the live radar late last night, and yeah, it looked really severe as these did move through. Luckily, across land, they were fairly isolated before exploding in size across the North Sea. So fortunately for us, didn't impact too many areas, but where you can see where these streaks of darker greens and yellows are. These are where some of those heavy storms move through. Really that focus there across the border. But it has now died down, and although yes, still some more heavy rain around in places, it shouldn't be as severe as this. Now, if you go over to net weather, you can see the top temperatures today. Recording is around 2 p.m, so we might still get a degree or two on top of this, but most 24 to 27 degrees. So very warm, very pleasant, but about 5 or 6 degrees for most, cooler than yesterday. And it's going to drop even cooler as we head into Monday before those temperatures could pick up once again. Now, if you look at the UKV, you can now see All those showers heading in for northern and western areas could spread southwards and eastwards at times and die out a little bit over the course of the evening. And as we head into Monday, it's mostly dry. Still, again, showers focus further northwards, but for most it is a pretty dry and very pleasant day. As we progress into Tuesday, perhaps some more persistent rain arriving there in the north and west, and it could again spread southwards and eastwards, but looks more likely just to be some thicker cloud. Again, by the afternoon of Tuesday, not too bad, and that continues into Wednesday, but again we start to see some heavier showers, a bit more focused across the southeast there, with the instability drifting into that warmer, hotter air through Wednesday evening. And as we head into Thursday, again, most of the rain and the showers focus in the north and west, but not exclusive, some drifting south and eastward. So you can see that firm split appearing there, mostly unsettled in the north, mostly dry in the south, but not exclusive. And of course, we'll see from the temperatures now that there is quite a split as well. Now, if you look at the upper air temperatures first, you see all that hot air getting pushed away, and we all go into something slightly fresher as we head into the new week. So for Monday, it's fresher, but warm air already trying to re-emerge in the south. And then again, you can see this south and north split. 3 or 4 degrees across Scotland, 11 or 12 across the south of England. That split not only pushing temperatures higher in the south than in the north, but also fueling the showers, that temperature difference, allowing some instability, potentially providing more energy for that convection to take place. So it's not only impacting the temperatures, but also impacting the precipitation and the unsettled nature. You can see that continues through much this week with warm air pushing up from the south at times, and that's why we could still reach the mid-20s throughout this week, maybe even upper 20s. And you see that from these 2 meter temperatures. Still 26, 27 in the far east this afternoon, but into Monday, most are much cooler, around 22 or 24. The best areas further north and westwards much more likely to be mid to high teens. As we go into Tuesday, slightly warmer across parts of central England, 26, 27 could re-emerge, but most are low 20s or high teens. Same for Wednesday, could get up towards 27, 28 across eastern England. And finally into Thursday, again could see 25, 26. So perfectly warm, much more pleasant warmth this week, but it isn't going to be everywhere. Those northern and western areas are going to suffer a little bit more. Again, the last few days have been pretty abnormal for mid to late June. June is the coolest summer month. It's still a very hot month generally for the UK, but generally speaking, our hottest temperatures do come in July and August. So that humidity and that oppressive heat we saw last week, that is pretty unusual, and we're going to see something more in line with what we'd expect for this time in June, mid-20s or upper 20s in a few spots. Now, do have a note to the latest GFS. Now, you can see this typical westerly flow over the coming days with high pressure out to our south and our east, low pressure out to our north and west towards Iceland with this west to southwesterly flow, fueling warm pushes from the south and southwest, but also keeping low pressure close by, so still allowing some rain at times. This progresses for much of the next couple of weeks with some high pressure bursts which could dominate for a short period of time, but generally speaking doesn't look like we're going to really get out of this mould at all. Very warm air still to our south, so again slight bursts of heat, some slight southerly pushes like we could potentially see here around the 30th of June, showing a slight southerly push, 15 degrees firm pushes in, maybe 30 degrees, because it is very much on a knife edge. So can't really pinpoint anything at this stage, but even though it doesn't look amazing here from the pressure charts, there is a considerable chance that if things change very slightly, that a hotter spell, a little burst of heat, a Spanish plume or something like that could appear very, very quickly. So although, at the moment, we're not looking at anything too hot for the next week or two, it could really appear at very short notice. Now, if you compare to the GM, very similar, west to southwesterly wind into next week. And again, could see those southerly bursts at times, even a little low pressure system developing there. That could produce some heavy showers and storms. And again, does come with a little burst of heat. The 20-degree isotherm, look at that, isn't too far away and just skims the far southeast. Again, slight different orientation, and we could see that bursting northwards. So again, we'll have to wait and see, but definitely going to be a bit of a battle between that very hot air that's still sat to our south and these westerly winds that are trying to push in something slightly fresher as we head towards the end of the month. And finally, if we compare to the latest ECMWF, again, very similar. All the runs are pretty in line today. West to southwesterly winds, high pressure trying to push in, but it's still a battle between those westerly flows. And you can see eventually in the longer run, I bet those cooler air masses do win out, but still plenty of these little southerly bursts there. For example, very similar to the GEM around the 30th of June. Now, to finish by looking at the latest ensemble, see a drop in temperatures over the next 24 hours, but it rebounds within about 12 hours to above average and could peak around the 15-degree isotherm around Wednesday or Thursday, so could get back to that high 20s as we saw from the UKV. But it lasts again for about 24 hours, drops back off, and then generally longer term, we're hovering average to above average. But again, it could move around a lot as we progress towards the end of the month and start of July. Warm weather definitely does look favoured in the south, but nothing too hot at this stage, where I said things could crop up at very short notice. Precipitation is fairly minimal, as we alluded to. In the south, it is going to be generally drier, but further northwards, these precipitation spikes would be much, much higher. 2 temperatures all over the place, but again, hovering around the 23 to 25 degree range most days for London, at least. Cooler further northwards. And if we look at the sea level pressure, you can see lots of ups and downs, lots of troughs, indicating lots of small low pressure systems moving through, lots of changes in pressure. So no one pattern or one system dominating the foreseeable future. And finally, if we compare to the latest ECMWF, very similar, drop in temperatures, recovers midweek, another drop later on next week, and then it recovers into next weekend, into generally the final few days of the month and start of June. Precipitation is spiking perhaps later on this week. That could be when that little low pressure system clears through in the south, bringing some heat, but also maybe some storms, and we'll keep a very close eye on that. But generally speaking, for the south, warm and dry, few bits and bobs of rain at times and some showers further northwards, still warm at times, but more cooler conditions mixing in, and generally being quite a bit more unsettled with those low pressure systems close by. As I said, things could grow up at very short notice, so we've got to keep a very close eye on this, and so that summary could change very, very quickly. So don't expect that to be the forecast for the foreseeable future. That's just what we can see right now. We'll have to wait and see what changes could crop up, and of course we'll communicate that in any future videos. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.